Muslim, Islam my deen, Allah my Lord, His word Quran, Muhammad Prophet, praise be upon him. I'm a Muslim for all of time. As I grew up, walking in this great big world, I gazed in awe at the wonders of Allah. And as I learned the cruel lessons of life, Islam shone through as my guiding light.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome, dear viewers from around the world, to another exciting episode of Good Answers. I'm your host Malik, and I'm joined by the founder of Guide Us TV. He's well known. He needs no further introduction. Of course, I'm talking about Sheikh Yusuf Estes. Sheikh Yusuf.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi Malik.
Alaikum salam. Thank you, Sheikh, for being here today. Of course, we have our studio audience with us today. Assalamu alaikum, young men.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I hope you guys have some good questions. And Sheikh Yusuf, I hope you have a good answer. Are you going to guide us to some good answers today?
We hope we all get guided today.
we have a question of the day from the UK. Let's check it out and see what this man has to say and come back and take your thoughts, inshallah.
Okay.
Let's check out this clip, you guys. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I'm a student studying in Northwest College, London. So actually I want to know about the Islam because I have also so many Islam friends, and he used to give me the book, which translated in English. And I just want to know about Prophet Muhammad. Who is he? So actually he's saying that Prophet Muhammad, I read that book also, and Prophet Muhammad is also same like us, yeah? So I want to know more about that. Who is Prophet Muhammad?
Well, excellent question, Sheikh. Who is the Prophet Muhammad?
Well, I think what we might do, Malik, is find out from our audience, and maybe somebody would like to give us some input. They're asking who is Prophet Muhammad, and I heard him say, like us, somebody like us. What's your take on that?
My name is Ayman, and I think a lot of people would like to know, a lot of non-Muslims would like to know who Prophet Muhammad was.
Well, thank you, Ayman. Yeah, I think a lot of people do want to know. And from what this particular person was asking, I think what we would do is focus on the part where he said, like us.
What does that mean?
I'm going to assume that what he means is, it looks like he's a human being.
Right.
Now, from a Christian point of view, when I was a Christian, I would wonder, okay, Jesus is not a normal human being.
Right. Because
first of all, he's born to a woman who is a virgin, which is impossible, but he was, so this is a miracle.
Right.
Number one. Number two, he did all kind of miracles.
Right.
People can't do miracles. Okay. Number three, that he even brought a dead person back to life, an extreme miracle. Number four, that he did things that people just can't even imagine, like he went up to God. And then he spoke to people in strange ways. When he wasn't even there, he could speak to people, and coming back in the last days. So all of these things, I would say that it's not a normal person.
Right. By all means.
Yeah.
Of course.
So he's human, but he's God, he's Son of God, etc. This is the Christian viewpoint.
Okay.
Different Christianity, different groups within Christianity, they have different ideas, but
naturally
summing it up. Now, for us, we want to identify who is Muhammad.
Okay.
Muhammad, peace be upon him, is born with a mother and a father.
Okay.
That's called normal birth.
Right, okay.
Right? And he was raised in a normal way.
Okay.
Okay, we don't know much about Jesus being raised from Christian point of view because they don't have anything till he's like 12 years old, something like that.
Okay.
Then we come back to Muhammad again, and we find that he ate food.
Right.
Right? And he went to the bathroom like human beings do.
Right.
He was a normal person.
Okay.
He got married. Jesus didn't ever get married.
Excellent.
He had children. Jesus didn't have any children.
Okay.
And he went through a normal life. And he died. And that's very important. He died.
And he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's buried.
Okay.
And peace and blessing be upon him. So, again, I'm just using the reference of what he said, like us. So I want to make this distinction because perhaps he was a Christian. I'm not sure. I don't get to ask him. I'm just getting a second-hand question. Also, I would emphasize to the person that we see all of the prophets like Muhammad.
So what do you mean by that, Sheikh?
Well, we consider all of them to be human in that they're not God. They're not God-like.
Okay.
They get gifts from God. They have certain things we call miracles associated with their message coming to the people.
Right.
But at the same time, we're not going to say any of them are God or even a demigod, a son of a god, a daughter of a god, a cousin of a god, nephew, uncle, whatever of a god.
Right.
We don't have any kind of genetic relationship to the deity.
Okay.
Not for us. We are not children of God.
Okay.
As mentioned in the Bible, they have themselves as children of God. No. And we also don't consider that Jesus is a son of God.
Okay.
Now, I'm making a comparison to Jesus and Muhammad for a reason, because of the way he said that. I might be
Right.
wrong.
Okay.
But to come back to that, I want to now reference something that we find in the Old Testament in the book of Deuteronomy.
Okay. Go ahead.
Chapter 18, verse 16, 17, and 18 tells us that God is speaking directly to Moses,
Okay.
Musa, alayhi salam.
Alayhi salam.
And in this talk, Allah is telling him that God is going to raise up for future generations a prophet like unto Moses. I've heard Christian preachers explain that that's Jesus. If that's true, if they believe that, then they have just said Jesus is a prophet. We believe that, so they don't have a problem there.
Right. Of course.
But then it says, like unto Moses.
And this is the key, isn't it?
Well, I would say so,
Yeah.
because if you think about this just for a minute, Moses and Jesus, where's the similarity? Well, they were human. Well, that's about it. Because Moses is not a miracle birth.
Right. Right.
What we find, actually, that Musa alayhi salam was separated from his mom early on. She had to put him in the little basket, put him in the Nile, the Nile River,
Right.
and he was found by Pharaoh,
Right.
or Pharaoh's family, actually, raised in his home
Right.
and treated like the royal family. And then later he becomes a prophet, realizes that he is from not the Pharaonic people, but in fact he's from the tribe from Abraham,
Right,
etc. Now, in that way we can compare and look, and is Jesus following this story? No, this
Not
is
at all.
not his story.
Right.
But Muhammad Sallallahu very clearly was separated from his mom at an early age, because they put him out in the desert to learn from the desert families about the Arabic language, and also the beauty of being away from the city, that kind of thing. His father died before he was born. Just months before he was born, his father died.
Okay.
And his mother only lived a few years, and she passed away. Then he was raised by his grandfather. Then he passed away. Then he was taken over by his uncle.
Okay.
So we see that he went through these changes. We look at Musa alayhi salam, we see almost identical, because he also was separated and growing up away from his family.
Okay. Excellent point.
Yeah. But with Jesus, we don't see this. It's not the same story. So if you want to make that parallel, which some people have done, I would say you'll find a lot more, because Moses got married, and a lot of people forget this. He got married more than once.
Excellent point.
And so did
That's a good answer, sir.
So did Muhammad.
Right.
Peace be upon him. But not Jesus.
Right.
Both of them had children.
Right. Good answer. Another good answer.
And we keep comparing.
They're
And
both
we're going to
right.
say that, yes, Muhammad is like
Moses.
human, like us, and very much like the prophecy in the Old Testament, the book of Deuteronomy. A prophet like unto Moses.
Can we say, Sheikh, they're both lawgivers?
They're both.
They both came with the law.
Oh, lawgivers. Well, yes, but here's another point, though, before we come to that, is from your brethren.
Okay.
This is also in those verses, from your brethren. Why didn't it say from you guys, from your tribe? Why brethren?
Why?
Because the idea here is the brother of who? The brother of the descendants of Isaac,
Okay.
which are called the children of Jacob, or Israel. His name was changed to Israel, right?
Right.
So the children of Israel are brothers to who? the children of the Ishmaelites. From your brethren Ishmaelites, this would be the Arabs, because that's where the Arabs were married into the Ishmaelites, and that's exactly where Muhammad, peace be upon him, came from.
It's very obvious, it's very clear.
So now it becomes like, whoa, how did I miss that?
Yeah, it's so obvious, of course, they're brethren.
So I would make that kind of comparison. Yes, Muhammad is a human being.
Okay.
But now let's come to something else. You want to talk about the lawgiver.
Okay.
Brothers, have you heard about the law giving, or the law? Who would like to comment here? Yes, brother, your name.
The lawgiver. That would definitely be from Allah alone. And the other laws, for example, the Sunnah, that would be from the prophets. And I would like to say about Muhammad, he was also a slave and a messenger of Allah.
That's a very good point. I like that. And it's something that we might want to focus on too. We consider ourselves slaves, not kings,
right?
Not higher ups. In fact, a slave is the lowest, right?
Right.
So according to what about other human beings, we're not going to put ourselves above anybody. We say we're all brothers and sisters from Adam, and we make no distinction between any of the prophets. So for us, all the prophets are human beings. Now, those who want to keep focusing on this idea of Jesus is not having a father, so therefore he's a God, we would say, okay, if you want to play that game, let us look back to our mother Eve, Hawa.
Right.
Now, she came out of a man. She had no mother. Isn't that a bigger miracle, that a woman is coming out of a man?
Right. And what about Adam himself?
Well, even before we get to that,
okay,
who's worshiping Eve? Nobody.
Right.
But that's a bigger miracle.
Right.
And then Adam, as you say, he's coming from nothing, dirt.
Right, right.
No father, no mother.
Right.
I heard it explained by one of the Muslim scholars that Jesus is a completion of three things. Four, actually. First of all, a human being created with no mother, no father. Adam. Kun fayakun. Allah said be, and he is, and that's the first one.
Okay.
Second is the very next human being is a woman created out of a man. Kun fayakun, by the permission of Allah, his qadr. And then has to be one more that comes from this. But first we're going to see another miracle, and that is from these two, the one created from dirt, the one created from the bone in it, from these two now, and this is in Quran, from these two Allah brought forth many nations, many tribes, and made them different from each other so they recognize each other. That's in Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter 49. Now what we understand from this next miracle, the children of Adam, not children of God, children of Adam are all miracles. That's why I said we consider all of our fellow human beings as brothers and sisters in humanity.
Okay.
Okay. Then the final miracle has to be now a man coming out of a woman with no father. And that is Jesus. So it's a completion, and it makes sense. But as we wouldn't worship, we're not going to worship Adam.
Of course
we're not going to worship Eve. We're not going to worship human beings. And we're not going to worship Jesus. But we are going to acknowledge that we will worship the God that the prophets worshipped and taught us to worship.
Sheikh Yusuf Estes, that's another good answer. You guys at home, stay tuned for more good answers after this short break.
I am a Muslim, Islam my deen, Allah my Lord, His word Quran, Muhammad Prophet, praise be upon.
It's welcome again from me, from your host Ismail Bullock, and from your host
Gabriel Romani. The parents have to encourage their kids to get married, and at the same time support them.
What many people don't understand is that seeking knowledge in itself is ibadah. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, لَأَنْ أَطْلُبُ الْعِلْمَ سَاعَةً أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَلْفِ رَكَعَةٍ. That I seek knowledge for an hour is better and more beloved than 1,000 rak'ah, which means 1,000 rak'ah.
The real meaning
of La ilaha illallah is not there's no God but God. La ma'bud bihaqqin illallah. That is, if you want to note it down, that is the real meaning of La ilaha illallah. There is none worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I remember as a Christian, when I was a Christian before, they have this whole issue of your cross, you have to wear your cross, this will protect you, and if it breaks, something wrong will happen to you, and the icons, and put an icon in your wallet.
Islam my deen, Allah my Lord, His word Quran, Muhammad Prophet, praise be upon.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Good Answer. We are trying to identify who is the Prophet Muhammad with Sheikh Yusuf Estes. Sheikh Yusuf, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being with us. This is a huge figure in history. We sure don't learn a lot about him growing up in school. Who is the Prophet Muhammad and why is he so important?
Well, obviously there's a lot to be said here, and there's a lot of history that's missing in the West that needs to be filled back in. We had it at one time, but then we lost it. And I can give you an example of that. If you look in the Encyclopedia of 1930, Britannica. I was just in Britain recently and had a chance to see one of these real old encyclopedia sets. It was as a prop. It was being used as props inside of one of the studios where we shot. But it was real, and I pulled out the one with letter I and looked up Islam, and I counted 108 pages explaining everything about Islam. 108 pages of text and 12 pages of plates, pictures.
Wow.
From the 1930s. And imagine that it covered everything, what we believe, what our actions are, what the pillars of Islam are, the various different understandings that groups have within Islam, what is the particular Shiism and Sufism, etc. It covered all this in details, giving references, as encyclopedias do, where they got it all from. Now we'll move forward to 1989. I had a 1989 dictionary published by the same outfit that published the Encyclopedia Americana. The same thing as the Britannica, which was an American side. And they also had, in the 1930s, a lot of information, right? But 1989, now we got a dictionary. I learned from this discretion that's coming up. I turn to the letter I look up the word Islam. One statement only. See Mohammedism.
Oh, why this change? And what happens when you flip to
What happened to the 108 pages? Why I'm being referred to Mohammedism, and we just talked about that we don't worship Muhammad. Why are we being called Mohammedans here? We go to Mohammedism and look it up. It says a religion established or started up by a desert Arab. And I think it said prophet, a prophet of the Arabian desert, something like that. That's it. There's no other reference. And you're like, what? What happened to the 108 pages? What happened to the 12 pages of pictures? And we're being reduced now to as though it was something that he made up himself, as it has no credibility anymore.
Why, Sheikh? How can we get back, instead of asking why, how can we get back to that, to those 108 pages?
Well, believe it or not, Wikipedia has had some emphasis on this. When Wikipedia first started, I was one of the very first Muslims to go to it and started adding things. In fact, the word Islam itself, the etymology, I'm the one that put it in there the first time.
Mashallah.
By the way, you can go back and check it because they have the history of it to see who did what when. And you go back to the February or March, I think, of 99, I think is when we did it. I'm not sure. But you'll find that's when the etymology, the breakdown of the word Islam, the breakdown of the word Muslim, and the word Quran, not meaning a reading, but rather a recitation, etc. All of these things that I did, and within 2 days it was changed back to the old way. And every time I would try to update it, they would just discredit and throw it out. I put something in there about my father, for instance, and they threw that out. Because it was obvious that this is not really a fair place to get information. Over the years, Muslims started bringing more and more evidences. And in matter of fact, they even threw me out of Wikipedia at one time and said maybe I wasn't a real person. And then the brother went to bat for that, and he said, no, here's evidence from this particular magazine, this newspaper, he was here, he was there. And they were saying, well, we don't have references and all. The history, you can read in there what they're doing. So you have people playing with information. Now, here's something we might think about. The word in English for a documentation of past events, the documentation and narration of past events is called what?
Documentation.
History.
History, of course, yeah, history.
Right?
Right.
His story.
Right.
I always say, where's her story? Where's our story?
Right. Why his story?
Where's my story? It's only his story. And I'm tired of it. And that's why we make programs like this, so people can get a chance to find out some very real background on who somebody is and what they're all about. And of course, we're focusing on Muhammad. And what I'd like to do now, if we can, is to ask take a poll here from the audience, find out what's going on. Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hussam Eddin Alam. I'm a student at the Faculty of Sharia and Law English at Al-Azhar University. I have a question, please. And because it has to do with the point of the lawgiver that you mentioned, Sheikh, in the first episode. So if you can please clarify more the concept of lawgiver in Islam and the status of Prophet Muhammad as a lawgiver in Islam.
Excellent, thank you, brother. And Sheikh, can you also mention the similarities between the Prophet Moses as a giver of law and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them both, as a giver of law, whereas Jesus, people say, Christians believe, he wasn't actually a lawgiver?
Well, I think that, to be fair, I want to now to come to your question. Some Christians would say, yes, Jesus is at least a lawgiver or a law modifier. Okay, because in the New Testament, we find something referenced here, the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. What is intended behind it? For instance, it mentions that a woman who was an adulteress or prostitute, she was going to be stoned. Now the Pharisees, who were the leaders of the temple, they were the head of the Sanhedrin, and they're here judges now. They're about to stone this lady to death. Okay? And they're asking Jesus now, trying to put him in a trap. And he said to them, according to the English translation, we don't know what he really said, but he says, let he who is without the same sin. Now, in the English translation, you don't have that, but the reference is the same sin. Let the one here who didn't do the same thing pick up the first stone. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. But the reference was to who also did the same thing, because he knew they had also committed adultery. All right? Generally speaking, he knew they also were sinners. If you don't have any sin, why don't you throw the first stone? And none of them could, and they all walked away. So he was showing the spirit of the law. It is, don't commit adultery. And so because somebody got caught, and you're going to stone them and make yourself look better, you did the same thing. I like that. It makes a lot of sense. And this is the way Islam is treating the same thing. The hudud in Islam, or the punishment in Islam, is not based on an opportunity to throw vengeance on somebody, to strike somebody down, to show violence, but rather to put a check or a control on each of us, that we realize, hey, if I get out of line, I can get punished. But you'll notice also with each one of these laws, you don't have something that's wide open for interpretation. It's very clear. Let's take only that one, because this is not our subject really, but I would like to focus on it just for a moment. And that is this subject of adultery. Now, as we just mentioned, in the Jewish law, an adulteress would be stoned to death. Okay, that is not the case according to Islamic law. An adulteress who would be caught would only be lashed, not to death, but they would lash them. They would whip them for that. Okay, but before we go to that, let us find out, what does it take to be guilty of such a thing?
Good question.
For eyewitnesses. Now, what kind of person is out here doing something like this in public?
Right.
I mean, we're talking about XXX pornography or something here. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And this is not acceptable in any society, except among some very strange individuals. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
So what we're seeing here is that you have to have eyewitnesses for this.
Okay.
And there's more that goes along with it. It's not our subject, but I want to come back to Jesus did bring law.
Okay.
He did, in the sense that he clarified.
Okay.
Moses brought law, and so did Muhammad. But all of them, and this is the most important point, they all got it from the same source.
Okay.
From the Creator, the real lawgiver, who is only Allah.
Allah. Sheikh, in 1 minute, can you just clarify for the viewers who may not know much about Muhammad, in a nutshell, as we can say, who is the Prophet Muhammad?
Muhammad, peace be upon him, has been considered by non-Muslim scholars themselves as, we said, a lawgiver, a leader, a uniter of tribes, a person who could solve world problems even today. And it's been said by such great people as George Bernard Shaw and even Gandhi that if he were alive today, he would in fact be the best of the leaders for the human beings to solve these problems through his wisdom, his intellect, and his ability to work, and even non-Muslims, of course, to work together with the people to unite us for one common bond, to have a better life here on this planet. And for those who choose to believe, a better life for them in the hereafter. That is Muhammad.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Yusuf Estes. That is another good answer. You guys at home, stay tuned next time for more good answers from Sheikh Yusuf Estes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I am a Muslim, Islam my deen, Allah my Lord, His word Quran, Muhammad Prophet, praise be upon Him. I am Muslim for all of time. Look at me now, family around my deathbed. I know not when Allah will call me home. The life I led, oh what a blessed thing. As death comes to me, these words I will sing. I am a Muslim, Islam my deen, Allah my